In the heart of Lagos, Nigeria, stood the imposing mansion of Adebola Adeyemi. At 68, Adebola was a force to be reckoned with, a self-made billionaire whose business empire spanned real estate, import-export, and technology. Her success story was legendary in Lagos business circles, having risen from a humble market trader to one of the wealthiest women in West Africa. On this particular morning, Adebola sat in her study, a room filled with dark wood furnishings and walls lined with books. She held a framed family photograph, studying the faces of her 4 children with a mixture of love and concern. There was Olumide, her firstborn, now 45. In the photo, his smile exuded confidence, bordering on arrogance. Adebola sighed, remembering his recent business dealings that skirted ethical lines. Next to him stood Folake, 42, her only daughter. A successful pediatrician, Folake's smile in the photo was warm but tired. Adebola knew the toll her daughter's divorce and single motherhood had taken on her. Kayode, 39, had his arm slung casually over Demilola's shoulder. His carefree grin belied the financial troubles he constantly found himself in. Adebola's hand tightened on the frame as she recalled the most recent loan she'd given him to clear his debts. Finally, there was Damilola, her youngest, at 35. His gentle smile reminded Adebola of herself in her younger years. His work in non-profit education filled her with pride, but she worried about his financial stability. Adebola set the photo down and turned to look out the window at the bustling Lagos street below. The question that had been plaguing her for months resurfaced: who among her children was truly ready to handle her legacy? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Her personal assistant, Yemi, entered with a stack of documents. "Ma, here are the latest reports from the Abuja project." Adebola nodded, gesturing for Yemi to set them on the desk. As the young woman turned to leave, an idea struck Adebola. "Yemi, wait, I need you to arrange a meeting for me. Reach out to my sister Ronk in Ibadan. Tell her it's urgent." Yemi nodded, slightly puzzled by the sudden request but knowing better than to question her employer. "Yes, ma, anything else?" Adebola paused, then said, "Yes, I need you to find me the most discreet funeral home in Lagos. And Yemi, this stays between us." "Understood." Yemi's eyes widened, but she quickly composed herself. "Of course, ma, I'll get right on it." As Yemi left, Adebola turned back to the window. Her plan was forming, audacious and risky, but potentially the only way to truly understand her children's characters. 3 days later, Adebola sat across from her younger sister Ronki in a private room at a small cafe in Ibadan. Ronki, a retired school teacher, listened in shocked silence as Adebola laid out her plan. "You want to fake your own death?" Ronka finally exclaimed, her voice a harsh whisper. "Adebola, have you lost your mind?" Adebola leaned forward, her eyes intense. "I need to know, Ronki. I need to see how they'll behave when they think I'm gone. Will they honor my memory? Will they use what I've built responsibly? Or will they reveal themselves to be unworthy?" Ronki shook her head, still in disbelief. "But the pain you'll cause them, and the logistics. How would you even begin to pull this off?" Adebola smiled wryly. "I've already set things in motion. I have connections who can create a convincing death certificate. I found a funeral home willing to cooperate, for a price. I've even commissioned a lifelike wax figure to stand in for my body." "A wax figure?" Ronka gasped. "Adebola, this is madness." Perhaps Adebola conceded. "But I've worked too hard, built too much, to leave my legacy in the wrong hands. I need your help, sister. Will you stand by me?" Ronki was silent for a long moment, conflict clear on her face. Finally, she sighed deeply. "I don't agree with this, Adebola. But I know that look in your eyes. You'll do this with or without me. So yes, I'll help you. God forgive us both." Adebola reached across the table and squeezed her sister's hand. "Thank you, Ronki. Now let me explain the rest of the plan." Over the next few weeks, Adebola meticulously put her plan into action. She announced to her family and close friends that she was embarking on a spiritual retreat in Senegal. This would provide the cover she needed to disappear. She worked tirelessly, making arrangements and covering her tracks. She set up a network of trusted individuals who would keep her informed of events in Lagos. she prepared a series of tests and challenges to truly gauge her children's characters. As the day of her death approached, Adebola felt a mix of anticipation and guilt. The pain she was about to cause weighed heavily on her, but she convinced herself of the necessity of her actions. On the eve of her plan's execution, Adebola stood on the balcony of her Ibadan hideout, looking out at the unfamiliar city skyline. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Forgive me, my children," she whispered to the night air. "But this is for your own good, and for the good of our family's legacy." With those words, Adebola Adeyemi, matriarch, businesswoman, and mother, prepared to die, if only in the eyes of the world. The stage was set, the players unaware, and the greatest performance of her life was about to begin. The sun had barely risen over the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria, when Adebola Adeyemi stirred in her king-sized bed. At 68 years old, she still maintained the habit of rising early, a discipline that had served her well throughout her remarkable journey from a humble market trader to one of the wealthiest and most influential businesswomen in West Africa. As she sat up, her gaze fell upon the framed family photograph on her bedside table. It was taken 5 years ago, during happier times when her late husband was still alive and her children seemed more united. Adebola's fingers traced the smiling faces in the picture, a mix of love and concern evident in her eyes. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, slipped her feet into plush slippers, and made her way to the en-suite bathroom. As she went through her morning routine, Adebola's mind was already racing with the day's agenda and the weighty decision that had been occupying her thoughts for months. After dressing in a crisp, tailored suit that exuded authority, Adebola descended the grand staircase of her mansion. The house was already alive with activity house staff moved efficiently, preparing for the day ahead. Adebola acknowledged them with warm but brief greetings as she made her way to the dining room. Her personal chef, Chidi, had prepared a light breakfast of fresh fruits, whole grain toast, and herbal tea. As Adebola ate, she perused the morning newspapers, her sharp eyes scanning for any mentions of her various business interests. "Ma," a voice called from the doorway. It was Yemi, her personal assistant, a young woman in her early 30s who had proven herself invaluable over the past 5 years. "Your 9 a.m. meeting with the Board of Adeyemi Investments has been confirmed. Also, Mr. Olumide called. He wants to discuss the new real estate project in Lekki." Adebola nodded, a small frown creasing her brow at the mention of her eldest son. "Thank you, Yemi. Tell Olumide I'll call him back this afternoon. And please come to my study in an hour. There's something important I need to discuss with you." Yemi nodded, a flicker of curiosity crossing her face before she composed herself and left to carry out her tasks. Alone again, Adebola finished her breakfast and made her way to her study. The room was a reflection of its owner, elegant, orderly, and filled with mementos of a life well lived. Awards and accolades lined one wall, while another was covered with photos of Adebola with various dignitaries and business leaders. She settled into the plush leather chair behind her mahogany desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a thick folder. Inside were detailed reports on her 4 children, compiled by private investigators over the past year. Adebola had commissioned these reports in secret, driven by a growing concern about the future of her legacy. With a heavy sigh, she began to review the files, starting with her eldest son, Olumide. Olumide Adeyemi, 45 years old, had always been ambitious. He had followed in his mother's footsteps and ventured into business, showing a keen aptitude for deal-making from a young age. However, the report painted a troubling picture of a man whose methods were often questionable. There were hints of bribery, manipulated contracts, and a general disregard for ethical business practices. Adebola's heart sank as she read accounts of Olumide's latest venture, a real estate development in Lekki that had displaced hundreds of low-income families. While not illegal, the tactics used were aggressive and showed little concern for social responsibility, a value Adebola had always tried to instill in her children. Next, she turned to the file on her only daughter, Folake. Folake Adeyemi Johnson, 42 years old, had carved out a successful career as a pediatrician. The report spoke highly of her professional accomplishments, noting her dedication to her patients and her reputation among colleagues. However, it also highlighted personal struggles. Fulake was recently divorced, juggling single motherhood with her demanding career. The investigator noted frequent requests for financial assistance from Adebola, suggesting that Fulake was struggling to manage her finances independently. Adebola felt a pang of guilt as she read this. She had always been quick to help Fulake, seeing it as her duty as a mother, but now she wondered if this constant support had hindered her daughter's ability to stand on her own 2 feet. The next file belonged to her middle son, Adebola Adeyemi, 39 years old, was the black sheep of the family. The report was a litany of failed business ventures, unpaid debts, and reckless behavior. Adeyemi had dropped out of university in his 2nd year and had since drifted from one job to another, never settling into a career. The investigator had uncovered evidence of gambling debts and associations with unsavory characters in Lagos's nightlife scene. Adebola's hands trembled slightly as she read accounts of the numerous times she had bailed Adeyemi out of financial troubles. Each time, he had promised to change, to become more responsible. Each time, he had fallen back into his old habits. Finally, she opened the file on her youngest child, Adebola Adeyemi, 35 years old, was in many ways the child most like Adebola in temperament. After completing his education, he had chosen to work in the non-profit sector, focusing on education initiatives for underprivileged children in Lagos. The report spoke glowingly of Adebola's dedication to his work and the positive impact he was making in the community. However, the investigator also noted that Adebola's chosen path meant he lived a modest life, far removed from the wealth and luxury his siblings enjoyed. There were concerns about his financial literacy and his ability to manage significant wealth if it came into his possession. As Adebola finished reading the reports, she leaned back in her chair, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She had built her business empire from nothing, overcoming countless obstacles as a woman in a male-dominated business world. Her success had been driven not just by a desire for personal wealth, but by a vision of creating a lasting legacy that would benefit future generations of her family and continue to contribute positively to her community. But as she looked at the evidence before her, Adebola felt a deep sense of unease. Had she failed as a mother? Had her children's privileged upbringing and the safety net of her wealth stunted their personal growth? And most pressingly, was any of them truly ready to take on the responsibility of her legacy? A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, quickly returning the files to the drawer. Yemi entered, notepad in hand, ready for whatever task her employer had for her. "You wanted to see me, Ma?" Adebola nodded, gesturing for Yemi to take a seat. For a moment she was silent, considering her words carefully. What she was about to propose was unprecedented, possibly even crazy. But the more she had thought about it over the past weeks, the more convinced she had become that it was the only way to truly understand her children's characters and determine who was worthy of inheriting her estate. "Yemi," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of what she was about to say. "What I'm about to tell you must remain in the strictest confidence. Your discretion is absolutely crucial. Do you understand?" Yemi nodded, her expression serious. "Of course, Ma. You know you can trust me." Adebola took a deep breath. "I need you to help me fake my own death." The words hung in the air for a moment, their weight almost palpable. Yemi's eyes widened in shock, her professional composure momentarily shattered. I'm sorry, Ma. I don't think I heard you correctly. You want to fake your death?" Yemi's voice was barely above a whisper, as if saying the words too loudly might make them real. Adebola nodded, her expression grave. "You heard correctly, Yemi. I know it sounds outrageous, but I need you to listen to my reasons before you judge." Over the next hour, Adebola laid out her plan in detail. She explained her concerns about her children, her fears for the future of her legacy, and why she believed this drastic measure was necessary. "I need to see how they'll behave when they think I'm gone," Adebola concluded. "Will they honor my memory? Will they use what I've built responsibly? Or will they reveal themselves to be unworthy? This is the only way I can know for sure." Yemi sat in stunned silence, trying to process the enormity of what her employer was proposing. Finally, she spoke, her voice careful. "Ma, I understand your concerns, but isn't this a bit extreme? The pain it would cause your children, the legal implications." Adebola held up a hand to stop her. I've considered all of that, Yemi. The pain my children will feel, it pains me too, but I believe it's necessary. As for the legal aspects, I have connections who can help make this convincing. That's where you come in. She outlined the role she needed Yemi to play, arranging meetings, making discreet inquiries, and most importantly, being her eyes and ears in Lagos while she was in hiding. I know I'm asking a lot of you, Yemi Adebola said softly. If you're not comfortable with this, I understand, but I hope you'll stand by me. I trust you, and I need your help. Yemi was quiet for a long moment, conflict clear on her face. Finally, she took a deep breath and met Adebola's gaze. This goes against everything I believe in, Ma. But I've worked for you for 5 years, and I know you wouldn't suggest something like this without good reason. If you truly believe this is necessary, then I'll help you. Adebola reached across the desk and squeezed Yemi's hand, gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you, Yemi. Now, let's go over the details of the plan. Over the next few hours, Adebola and Yemi meticulously planned out every aspect of the deception. They discussed how to obtain a fake death certificate, how to stage a convincing body discovery, and how to manage the funeral arrangements. Adebola even went so far as to suggest commissioning a lifelike wax figure to stand in for her body, knowing that an open casket funeral would be expected for someone of her standing. As they worked, Yemi couldn't help but be impressed by the thoroughness of Adebola's plan. It was clear she had been considering this for some time, weighing every possible angle and outcome. There's one more thing, Adebola said as they were wrapping up. I need you to arrange a meeting for me with my sister Ronk in Ibadan. Tell her it's urgent, but don't give her any details. And Yemi, remember, absolute discretion is crucial. Yemi nodded, making a note in her pad. I'll arrange it right away, Ma. Is there anything else? Adebola shook her head. That's all for now. Thank you, Yemi. I know this isn't easy, but I truly believe it's necessary. As Yemi left the study, Adebola turned to look out the window at the Lagos skyline. The city she had helped shape over the decades sprawled before her, a testament to her hard work and vision. She thought of her children, each in their own way a product of this city and the opportunities it had afforded them. Forgive me, my children, she whispered to the empty room. But this is for your own good, and for the good of our family's legacy. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Adebola set her plan in motion. She announced to her family and close friends that she would be embarking on a spiritual retreat in Senegal, a plausible excuse that would allow her to disappear without raising immediate suspicions. Olumide had predictably protested, arguing that she was needed for an upcoming business deal. Folake had fretted about not being able to reach her in case of emergencies with the children. Kaode had made a half-hearted attempt to borrow money before she left. Only Demilola had fully supported her decision, saying that everyone needed time for self-reflection. Their reactions only served to strengthen Adebola's resolve. She bid her children goodbye with a mixture of love and sadness, knowing that the next time they saw her, their world would be turned upside down. 3 days after her supposed departure,